Hi, welcome to Group Together weekly webinar series featuring Scott Kooiman. We appreciate you for joining us this week. Please note that all of these webinars are recorded and will be sent out to you. That's all from me. Scott, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Glad to be with you today talking about farming and what we've done out here in Arizona. And just to introduce us, I work with Klaus. We lead the Klaus team out here in Arizona. In 2014, we did 73 million in volume on a 210 average price. We grew that in 2015 to 85. Last year, 121, and this year we're projecting 135. And all that is really coming from farming. Now, farming is no longer our number one lead source because we've been really doing a good job in focusing on our database over the last couple of years. But those database, most of those leads came from farming before. So now our database is finally outperforming farming, which is great because we like to have those nice handoff leads for our buyer agents and our listing agents, people that have already had experience with us versus the farm leads or the internet leads. We do significantly more volume from farming than we do in any other non-sphere, non-database aspect of our business. And we're consistently a top 50 in KWRI, which is really neat because we get to talk with just a ton of other people around the country and learn what they're doing in farming. And we've really been able to improve what we do here in Arizona based on just the networking that we get to do with KW, which is just so cool. So let's give a definition of farming. Farming is the consistent, ongoing, and repetitive marketing of your name to a consistent market so that when anyone in your market thinks of real estate, the first thing that comes to their mind is you. Now, I want to use this definition of farming because there's a lot of definitions of farming out there. People will say, oh, I farm. And you say, okay, what do you do? Well, I send out just sold postcards whenever I sell something. Pretty cool. It's that's mailing. I don't know if I'd call it farming because when you talk to most people, now I'm in Mesa, Arizona, which is part of the Phoenix Metro, and we have a huge MLS. I think it's probably one of the biggest MLSs in the country. But Phoenix Metro is huge. Not only Phoenix is the size, it's the 5th/6th largest city in the country. We keep going back and forth between us and Philadelphia. Both cities are basically the same size, but we have tons of other big cities. So a lot of the cities, Chandler and Gilbert, are both in the top 100 cities in the country. Mesa is number 38. It's larger than St. Louis or Miami or Atlanta. And so we have all this area, and our agents are able to work in all those different areas. You get a buyer that maybe you picked up off of a farm lead in East Mesa, but guess what? Once they sell, they're going to buy in Chandler or in Gilbert. So you're kind of all over the place. So if we do a just sold or a just listed in areas that we haven't really been marketing a lot of times, we're just doing what we call shotgunning. It's a little different than farming. Now, shotgunning is, hey, I've got this great opportunity. I just listed this house, sold it for 100% of list price in 3 days. That's great. And so I want to send postcards to the 200 homes right around that, right? It's not farming because we've only done it once. And so it's a one-off piece, and you'll see later in our call today how important it is to have multiple hits on these pieces. And so if we're doing a one-off or a two-off, it's not really going to be farming. And that's why I've bolded the word consistent. It's the consistent, ongoing, and repetitive marketing of your name to a consistent market. So we're doing it over and over and over again. And we're doing it to the same people, the same homes. The purpose of it is so that when anybody in your market thinks of real estate, the first thing that comes to your mind is you. Now, if you're doing a one-off piece, the goal of that piece is so that somebody will call me to list their home, right? When we're farming, the goal of that individual piece isn't necessarily so that somebody calls me and asks me to list their home. I know that that's going to happen, but really what I'm doing is I want to be consistent. I want to be repetitive. I want them to remember me. I want them to be tired of me, so that every time they think of real estate, the first thing that comes to their mind is you. And so we spend 12 weeks in our MAPS group coaching course. We dive into farming as a whole. And today I want to spend some time just kind of jumping into a piece of farming. It's a big piece, and it's why we do what we do, and it's branding. Right? So we're farming for the purpose of branding. Branding, this is the definition here because we've got to have definitions. Branding is positioning our product in a specific category so that when people think of that category, the reticular activators remind them of our brand. Now, I'm going to dive into a bunch of these pieces over this call. So if there's something in there that you haven't heard before, that's okay. Branding is positioning our product in a specific category so that when people think of that category, the reticular activators remind them of our brand. Now, when we're farming, our goal is branding. It's not so much listing and buyers. Now, we want those listing and buyers, right? But those are a byproduct of a great branding strategy. Those come because of our branding, because of our farming. The goal of branding, the means that we use to brand ourselves, is through regular and consistent direct mail, and then a bunch of supporting activities that we do to beef it all up. So what is a brand? A brand is any feature that identifies your product as different from other similar products. So if there's something about you, and we call that the value proposition, right? What is it about you that sets you apart from other realtors, other agents, other people who specialize in that area? What is different about you? Not only how they remember you. I think a lot of people think of a brand as their logo, right? That's a piece of it. It's not only how people remember you, but what makes them remember you. And so we're going to be farming for the purpose of branding. We want to make sure that they remember us, and we want to do a bunch of things to make sure that they remember us. You know, branding is positioning. It's helping you be first place in the category that you serve. The category that we serve is real estate. And we can get a little bit more hyper-local than that. When we're farming, we may just want to do, instead of real estate, it might be tough in a metro area where there's a super dominant agent whose face is on every billboard and who's all over the radio and all over the TV. But we can bring that category down a little bit, right? We can say, one of the areas we farm is Augusta Ranch. And so we can say the Augusta Ranch local market expert, the 85212 local market expert, the Mesa local market expert. And so when they think of what agent is best to sell my home, we want to make sure that they remember the brand, that we become first place in that category. Now I want to do an activity. And it's a super happy fun activity, and it involves paper. And it could be scratch paper, it could be the back of whatever you're writing on now, it can be an envelope, anything. If you just reach out, grab something to write with, and grab a piece of paper, and we're going to go through, and we're going to, I'm going to give you 8 different categories, and I want you to write down the first thing that comes to your mind. All right? 8 different categories, first thing that comes to your mind. All right, ready? Here we go. I'm going to move pretty fast, too. So fast food, write down the first thing that comes to your mind. Discount retailer. Soft drink. Coffee house. Beer. Search engine. Online bookstore. And real estate agent. So I'd like to get a volunteer if I can. I think somebody is not muted. Let me see if I can find them here. If you haven't muted your phone, please do so, because we're hearing a lot of background noise on the call. But I'd like to get a volunteer if I can. So if you go into where you see questions and just say, I'd like to volunteer, then we'll... All right, Stan. Let me see if I can find you, Stan. I'm not real good at this. All right, Stan doesn't have an audio pin. Let's get somebody that has audio set up on here. All right, and nobody's. So Stan, I'll go with you. Stan, if you could type into the questions the answers that you have for your categories there. And I'd say that for fast food, this is my predictions. While he types those in, boy, this is a lot more fun when somebody. Let's see, Stan he says McDonald's. Guess what? I've got McDonald's. And then he said Walmart. I've got Walmart. What do you got next? Stan says Coke. I have Coke. He says Starbucks. Guess what? I got Starbucks. Beer, he's got Budweiser. I've got Budweiser. He says Google. I've got Google. And online bookstore, he's got Amazon. I've got Amazon. And Stan, for real estate agent, I've got Stan. So that worked out pretty well. A lot of times we get 7 out of 8 or 8 out of 8. I think there's only been one time that we really had like 6 out of 8. So these are the brands that have made a concerted effort to rank first in their category. It's called positioning. They've positioned their brand. They've spent millions and millions of dollars, tons and tons of effort over many, many years to make sure that they're the first thing that comes to their mind, right? Now, we think about folks like Coke. People think of a soft drink, they think Coke. Some areas of the country, I remember now. This is I think it's a South thing, but apparently in Southern California it was a thing too. That you see a machine that has the Pepsi logo on the front of it, and it's dispensing Pepsis, and you go, hold on, I got to go over to the Coke machine. And Pepsi hates that, by the way. They don't want you to call it a Coke machine. They want you to call it a Pepsi machine. But that's what people do, right? And then the facial tissue. People say, hey, can you give me a Kleenex? Even if it's not made by the Kimberly-Clark Corporation, you still get a Kleenex. You go get some Scotch tape, even if it's not made by 3M. Yeah, it's crazy stuff, huh? And it's basic psychology. So Ivan Pavlov, he won the Nobel Prize, and he was playing with his drooling dogs, right? And he did studies where he discovered that the dogs drooled before they were giving food because he rang a bell whenever he gave them food. So he started giving them food, ring the bell. Ring the bell, give them food. Ring the bell, give them food. Ring the bell, give them food. And then all of a sudden he'd ring a bell and he'd see that they would drool. Pretty interesting, huh? Other people have tried similar things and it's worked. And so those of us in marketing, we picked up on that same concept. And now we control the minds of the people that we're reaching with our marketing pieces. Because we do. We learned about things called reticular activators from Pavlov. So what are reticular activators? They're visual stimuli. They're smells, they're sounds, they're tastes, and they instantly remind us of something that we've experienced in the past. I don't know if you've ever smelled something and it thought back to third grade. Maybe you smelled the smell of summer rain, and all of a sudden you're back on a vacation with your parents. Or maybe you hear a song on a radio and it brings you back to high school prom. I'll tell you a story about me and my grandma. My grandma, me and my sisters and my mom and dad, we always drank Diet Coke. We had a bunch of hypoglycemics in the family, so no one was eating sugar, and so we had Diet Coke. And that's what I learned to drink as a kid. But we'd go over to Grandma's house, and Grandma didn't have Diet Coke. She had Coke. And she never got cans. She'd always have the 2-liter, and she'd pour it into a glass. She put ice in there because the 2-liter she wouldn't keep in the fridge. It was just sitting on her counter, right? So she'd put ice in there, pour that soda, that Coke in the air. Here you go. Every once in a while, I'll go to like Chili's or something, and they will mess up my drink. And instead of bringing me a glorious Diet Coke, they bring me a Coke in a glass with ice. And the minute it hits my lips and I taste that Coca-Cola and I have the sound of and the feel of the ice cubes against the glass, it takes me back to Grandma's kitchen. I can see where the stove is. And Grandma passed away years ago. Her house was sold years before that. I can see every single aspect of her kitchen, and it brings me right back there. And that's reticular activation. It brings back something that you've experienced in the past, and it instantly reminds you because of visual stimuli or smells or sounds or tastes. Why do you think that Cinnabon pumps that smell through the mall so you walk in the door and you can smell it? Auntie Annie's, whatever the pretzel place is, they pump up that smell too, so you walk past them, you smell them pretzels. That's what we're doing. That's the reticular activation. So that brings us back to our definition. Branding is positioning our product in a specific category so that when people think of that category, the reticular activators remind them of our brand. We do all this to make sure that when people think of real estate, the first thing that comes to their mind is you. Why do we want to do that? Well, NAR did a study. Sellers interview one agent 64% of the time. They only interview 2 agents 17% of the time. If you line them up and do survivor style, that happens much, much less. So most of the time, more than half of the time, almost 2/3 of the time, sellers are going to list with the first agent they talk to. That's why I want to be top of mind. Now, if I'm talking about my database, if I'm talking about my sphere, I'm already top of mind, right? In my farm, it takes a little bit more work, it takes a little bit more money, it takes a little bit more time, and it takes a lot of persistence. But this is what we shoot for. So that when the people in our farm think of us or think of real estate, first thing that comes to their mind is us. That doesn't mean they're going to list with us each time, right? They might have Uncle Phil, their brother, somebody's licensed. You know that old joke. Police pulls over the guy for speeding, comes on up, says, "Can I see your realtor license?" The guy says, "Don't you mean driver's license?" The cop says, "No, not everybody has their driver's license." So many people are licensed out there, especially here in Arizona, and so sometimes they're just gonna have to go with their family. So I'm gonna try and get some of those ones that aren't, right. So I want to be first in mind. Now there's a treasure trove out there. NAR did another study, asked sellers and buyers, would you use your agent again? And 83% said they would. 83% of them said they would use their agent again. But then when they looked about 7, 10, 14 years down the road, they didn't. Only 28% of sellers use that agent again, and only 11% of buyers. That is crazy. That is crazy. Now, I can see with the sellers, that maybe they moved out of state, maybe they moved out of the MLS, the area that you serve. I can understand that, but the buyers are right there in the house that you sold them, and now they're using a different agent. So, what I want to do when I'm farming is I want to do better than those other agents. Now, those other agents are not doing a great job. Those buyer agents that sold them that house, only 11%, and that's 89%, are not using their agent. Their agent isn't doing a great job of database. They're not following up. They're not keeping them in the loop. So I want to do that. I want to sell the house that a different buyer's agent sold those people, right? And the way that I want to do that is by staying right on top. And I want to be the agent that they're looking for. So NAR did another study, a lot of studies by NAR, and they asked, not agents, they asked people, again, what are you looking for? What's most important to you in a real estate agent? You see a lot of these things that make sense: honesty and integrity, knowledge of the process, responsiveness, knowledge of the market, communication skills, knowledge of the area, and tech skills way down at the bottom. I know a lot of people freak out about that. They want to be better at tech skills, and they're at 37% say that that's really important to them. So we want to give people what they're looking for. And so when we're farming, we're focusing on a tight geographic area. We call it hyperlocal. So local would be all of Phoenix Metro might be local, right? Mesa might be local. I want to go hyper local. I want to go down to the zip code. I want to go down to a neighborhood and show people how much I know about that neighborhood, how much I know about the market here. When we're reporting stuff, we're doing market updates to the folks that we market to. We're not giving them Phoenix updates. We're not really giving them Mesa updates. We're giving them zip code-based updates. What's happening in yours? And then one of our farms is 2 zip codes. When we do market updates, we do one for each zip code because it is different for the 2 zip codes that are right next to each other. So I don't know where you're at and what your community looks like, but how can you define a territory? And we spend a lot of time in the course. We spend an entire call just looking at how to choose a farm and the business decisions that go into play in doing that. So I want to show you what we mail out. And so we have 3 different things that we do. I'm going to show you 2 of them. One is an 8-page newsletter, and this one goes to our oldest farm. So we've been doing this almost 18 years in this farm, and it's by far our most successful. We have 2 farms that have a 4-pager, so it's a little bit wider. This one's 8.5 by 5.5, and what's neat about this one is it's a rural route, which you don't see too much anymore. It's still classified as a rural route because it used to be desert. Now they built all the homes, but they kept the route the same, and so it plays by a little bit different rules. And there's another thing called EDDM. We talk about that a lot in our coaching class, so you understand that pretty well, but it's every door direct mail, and it's saturation. We found the cheapest, most effective way to brand an entire area is to hit every single home in that area. So we choose some routes and we mail to every single home. So we don't have mailing lists, we don't have stamps. We just send out to those homes, and it becomes pretty cost effective, especially as you grow and as you get more. For the past 5-6 years, we've been under 30 cents a piece to print, to process it for mail, and and postage, under 30 cents a piece. Right? You can't even mail a letter for that. It's crazy. The saturation. You just give them. The postal carriers have these trays, and as they go and deliver, they know that one goes to every single mailbox on the route. And so this one is 8.5 by 5.5. We have the 4-pager. I don't have pictures of that for you, but it looks a lot like this, but it's only 4 pages, so it's one piece of paper folded in half. It's cardstock, and so it's a little bit wider, 6.5 by 8.5, so it's just a little bit wider. And then we've got some postcards that we'll show you here. And so this is what went out last month, and so we just finished. So no, this was July. We did August, and now we're about ready to work on the art for September. But this is the one that went out in July, and as they get it, they actually, a lot of people think that we're just the largest advertiser in this community newsletter. Some people don't realize that we're the ones that put it out. I think more people are clued in. I would say about a third of the people just think it's a local neighborhood newsletter, and the ones that do realize that we put it out, that aren't other agents frustrated by our marketing strategies, we get a lot of thank yous for making it. And how often do you get a thank you from people for sending you an ad every month? But we do it, and so what we do is we take this ad and we put in enough hyper-local content that is valuable to them that they probably can't get too many other places without hunting for it. I mean, they could find it. We find it, but we look for good content that's going to appeal to these folks that are in these areas that we want to reach. And you'll notice that a lot of this stuff is not real estate related. Well, I've got tons of calls to action in here. This one, we normally have a call to action on the second page there, but we just had too many fireworks things. We usually have something along the bottom, so search the MLS for free. Had to take that out on this issue just to make some space. But we have plenty of calls to action through here, but what we're trying to do is we don't want them to get it and go, oh, this is a real estate piece. Because then all the people that aren't interested in buying or selling real estate right now, they're going to chuck it. You know, people that bought their house 2 years ago have no intention of selling right now. They just assume their home is probably about the same value, and if it was higher, it's not really going to impact their lives too much right now, right? And so they just chuck it. And so what I want to do is I want to be able to get the people that are wanting the real estate information. I'll give them the real estate information. The people that aren't thinking about buying and selling real estate, I want to give them stuff that they will take and open and leaf through, save. These things don't get purged in the waste bin. You know, they don't get stuck in the junk mail because people go, oh, there's some good information in there. I can read that. That's got stuff about my own backyard that isn't real estate related. And the idea is that they're getting hit with my branding month after month after month after month, 12 times a year at least. That's if they didn't see my banners at the high school, they didn't see my dividers at the grocery store, if they didn't see the moving truck or our wrapped cars, if they didn't see that we sponsored an event at the elementary school, all those kinds of things, right? And so it's all adding on, so that when they think of real estate, first thing that comes to their mind is the Kenny Klaus team, because they've had that in front of their face for so long. So this is what we've got in. So we got a front page. We like to put teasers on our front page. This is only on the A page that we do that. The other ones, obviously, we're not going to do teasers because there's not enough content in them. But we do teasers to get them to open it up, right? And so on the front and on the back, we have our branding, so that no matter how it lands, when the postman gets it to them, they'll be exposed to our brand, right? And so then we've got the teasers there, calls to action, and then we get where to see all the fireworks. Gives them information on where to see fireworks, if there's costs or anything like that, where to park, all that. And then we've got a page. We do a lot of stories in there. This one we actually use the map to show them some new developments that were coming to the area, some big things. Niagara Bottling is going to have a bottling plant. I don't quite understand it because we're in the desert, and so they're going to come take the water from the desert and put it to somewhere. Anywho, DuPont Fabros right there across from the Apple plant. Of course, we've got our spot where we're located on the map too, cabinet manufacturer. And so we do those periodically as things become more developed. And we include a little Zillow review. We update that each month so it doesn't stay stagnant. And then this is the inside, the center fold, if you will. And we have some active properties there. It's always a challenge because we have to send this to the printer about 11 days before it hits, and so a lot of times by the time they get this, all these homes are sold. But we're throwing that out. So we've got we do 6 actives there, and then we also have the featured listing there, and of course all of those are there we go. All of those are in the farm, and so it's all stuff that's in the farm. Sometimes if we don't have enough, then we put something else in there, but generally for this farm we usually do. Now there in the middle, you'll see want to sell. We can help you do it your way. We've been seeing a lot of these open door offer pad. Zillow just announced they're going to put their little product here in Arizona. And so we've been wanting to market there. A lot of times this has market updates. It's got, what was the days on market, what was the average sale price, how many homes in each area. You'll see what it looks like on our postcards here in a second. But we've been changing that up. So then we also do some recent closed sales and show those. Now, one of the things here's a freebie for you. One of the things I learned is a couple years ago we started putting our logo next to the ones that we listed or sold, right? There were a lot of our logos on there, but then we realized people thought that all of these were ours. And so we thought, well, we'll let them think that. And so we don't put our logo next to the ones we sold. We just let them guess whatever they'd like to guess, right? We've got the call to action on the bottom of those pages too, and most of the leads that come in are the home value requests. People wanting their home value, and those are great leads. They're nurtures, which means that most of the time they're not ready to buy or sell, but they will be. And so we like to make sure that we can get that, and then we keep following up with them, following up. We set reminders over and over and over again to keep them in the loop and keep them connected to us. Page 6 here, we usually have a story. This one's on water safety. I'll give you an example of that in a little bit, but here's Arizona has the second highest child drowning rate for children under 4 because we have more pools, right? And so we have a lot of regulations around the pools, but it doesn't always work. And so our water watcher tags are just a way for people to have a little bit of extra care over the kids, especially at a party. So we put this out every year, usually May, June, or July. We'll do an article on it and let people know that they can come get their free water watcher tags. And I'll share a little bit about that in a minute. We've got some lender ads in there because that helps us pay the bills. And our community network meeting. Now we spend, in our course, we spend about an entire hour talking about how we do our neighborhood network meeting and how we create brand ambassadors within our community that refer us business. And then that back page there, see we're collecting water for the homeless, and so that shows up there, and then some calls to action there at the bottom. So that is our 8-page newsletter. And you had a great question here. It says, maybe I missed it. How do you find awesome content for this? Because I struggle. Go into a lot of detail. I'll give you the in our course we go into a lot of detail on that. I'll give you the the bird's eye view here, one of the easiest ways to find content. When you're driving around, drive around with an I need content mindset. There you go. What would people find interesting? What don't I know about my community? If there's something I don't know, then I should probably figure it out. I'll give you an example real fast. We're still doing okay on time. We have a couple dairies still in our farm, and so there's some hay, and every now and then we'll have one of those hay fires. Hay fires are nasty. They stink. It just seems like where our office is compared to the dairy is always downwind. And so it's just blowing smoke, and these things go on for weeks, right? And so I looked and I saw a post about it, and it said that it was a spontaneous hay fire. I said, how in the world is a spontaneous hay fire? I thought spontaneous combustion was like an urban legend or something. And so I dug into it. I went and researched, and I found out about spontaneous hay fires. The spontaneous combustion is a real thing. And basically what caused that fire was rain. Oh, it's crazy. So this is what happens. Those hay piles are crammed in real tight, right? And so it rains, and the water runs underneath of it and gets the hay in the middle of the haystack, and it gets it wet. And then everything dries out. But it's still a little bit wet in there because it's hard to dry in there. And what happens when vegetation gets wet, gets moldy, right? And that mold in there is a living being, and living beings put off heat. And so because the air isn't really getting in there, then it's just heating up, and there's no way for it to cool down, and it starts to heat up and heat up and heat up, and this mold is starting to heat, and finally it heats to the point of combustion, and the slightest bit of oxygen that is getting in there on the underneath is enough to start a fire on the very, very inside of the bales of hay. And so it ignites, and it's burning from within, so it's just putting off all this smoke. And so I was like, that's interesting. And first thing I did, we wrote an article. Because if I'm wondering how everybody sees that hay fire, everybody smells that hay fire, everybody's talking about the hay fire, a little bit of content is just saying, this is how the hay fire happened. This is how it started. Another piece of content that we've had, probably the most engagement that we've ever had on content that we've shared on social media, is a new Dairy Queen. I'm not lying. People love their ice cream. We let people know that there was a new Dairy Queen, and we had more shares, we had more comments, we had people tagging their friends in it. There was no Dairy Queen here in the farm. All of a sudden, there's Dairy Queen. We let people know about it, and they were going head over heels. Everybody was just so thrilled. So that's how we find some content. We just look around and we find out what don't I know, or what can I find that's interesting. And new development is always one that people are very interested in. So our newsletter has a consistent front and back. We make some minor changes, but it generally looks the same. Each of our covers is seasonal based on the month, and we've got a different, background and stuff like that. But the layout is the same, and it's been that way for quite a while. On the back, the layout is somewhat the same. Sometimes we'll have some listings on there. Sometimes we won't. Sometimes it's just call to action. But we always want to make sure we have our branding on the front and back, so that if it lands face down or if it lands face up, they're still exposed to our branding. We have school info in there. Free classifieds we used to. We don't have it now. But if you're going to do a newsletter, it's a great idea. We just found that we had thought, oh, people are going to put in the things that they have for sale. Problem is, we're 11 days out when we send it to print, which means we need their stuff about 20, 25 days before, and it's not for sale anymore by the time it hits print. And so we found out that just a lot of them were MLM people and stuff like that. But give them free advertising. We do post like sports leagues and stuff like that, And so we've got some good brand ambassadors there that point people in our direction because we're pointing people in theirs. Community info, like fireworks, like we had there, fun events, fundraisers, sports stuff, recent sales and listings. Social media integration. We want to tell them where to go to get on social media. And so we have an 85212, 85209, your local, your community connection Facebook page. And, people can go there. We post a lot of stuff. We direct it to our website and things like that. So that's our 8-pager. The 4-pager isn't too much different. It's just a lot less content in it. And then we've also been doing, so those are 3 of our farms. Another 3 of our farms we launched last year, and we launched them differently. We said, let's try farming light. And it's so difficult to get content in an area that you're just, trying to learn, trying to get a footprint in. You don't have a lot of strong relationships in there. And so these are primarily real estate. And so we're not hitting the people that aren't thinking about buying and selling real estate. And the idea of these is we're getting a footprint in there, getting some sales, getting some experience. And these ones we are going to begin to, in the fall here, we're going to begin to add additional content. So this month, all of our farm agents in these 3 zip codes, they're going out and they're getting with some of the local restaurants and stores and stuff to get some coupons that they can put together. So we can put some coupons, and we're going to start to add stories. And our goal, these are 6x11 postcards. The goal is to grow to the point where they're folded. So they're still 6x11 on when they get them, but the sheet of paper is actually 12x11, and it's a folded newsletter that's the same size, so people are getting used to that, and they see it, so it's not too much difference. And you can see here we've got we've got how many active listings in the different price points. The new listings, month of inventory, homes sold, days on market, how our list price to sales price ratio, and then highest price, average price, lowest price. This is 85142. This is just south of us in Queen Creek, and then we've got some recent closed sales. And of course, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are in Queen Creek, but we're only mailing to the portion that is the most profitable right now. We can add more routes with revenue. And you can see that on the other side, it is still hyper-local. What's your Queen Creek home worth? Every time on all of our different farms, we have to go in and change those little computer screens and phone screens and the MLS search to make sure that it is to their neighborhood and not just a generic one for all over the place. And so, and then the Zillow reviews that we do on here are specific to that that zip code. All right. So this is kind of what I was talking about in why we want to not shotgun and why we want to farm. SMEI, it's a Sales and Marketing something institute, did a study, and they looked at when a sale was completed, what was the instigator of that sale? What finally made that sale happen? And this is not just real estate, but just about everything. And 2% was tied to the first piece. So only 2% of customers fulfilled the sale because they got one piece. So every time we're doing one of those just sold, just listed around these homes that we've never ever marketed to before, 2% of the possible people that we might be able to sell to would do it from the first piece. 4% would be tied to the second piece, 6% to the third piece, 10% to the fourth piece, 81% to 5 pieces or more. Okay, and so this happens with phone calls too. So if you're following up with people and you call them 2 times and then decide they're never going to call you back, and so you let that buyer go, another agent will get them because another agent is calling them 6 to 7 times. And so this works with phone calls. This works with direct mail. And so we want to make sure that we're adding on all the time, and that's why we add on with additional things, like we have banners up at the high school. We sponsor events. We make sure people see us over and over and over again, all the time. So here's the water watcher tags. These are very, very easy to make. It's a piece of cardstock. We laminated them and hole punched them, and we did these in, I would say it was 2012, and we still have a drawer full of them. And so we spent, back in 2012, we spent probably $150 on these lanyards, and probably about $20-30 total on the cardstock and laminating them. Of course, we designed it in-house and just printed it off on yellow paper and laminated them. And now we just advertise it each year, and so it's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year long. But the idea is, if you've got a party and the kids are in the pool, adults are taking turns watching the kids. So they put down their beverages, they put down other stuff, and they just focus on the pool for 15-20 minutes, and then hand this off to the next adult. And so whoever's doing the water watcher, they're wearing the tag. The other adults know not to bother them because they're just watching the kids. Most drownings are not noisy. Most drownings is just kids slipping below the water. So we want to stop that. We also give compression-only instructions on the back for CPR and 911, and give them a link to water safety tips. So I don't know if this has saved any lives. It's hard to tell. But it sure makes people feel good about us, and it gives us a reason for people to stop by our office that we can highlight every single year. Another thing that we've done in our farms, we do have a nonprofit that we started, Klaus Team Cares, a 501c3 nonprofit, and so we printed up these grocery bags, and so periodically we do canned food drives. And so it gives our agents an opportunity to go door knocking without a sales pitch. And so they'll have a little sheet on there that says, hey, this is where the food is needed, this is where it's going, this is what they're looking for. If you can fill this up with canned food, and either call this number, go to this web link, or drop it by our office. If you call, our web link will come by and pick it up. And so we're not doing a sales pitch on these. It would be very uncouth to do that. People would not think they're wise to go up to a door saying you're doing a food drive and then ask them if they need to sell their house. So it's a relational thing. They're just, our agents are going by and they're seeing us active, and then when people ask us, and so a lot of conversations happen because they've instigated it. So our agents are doing door knocking in their farms, the regular way too. They're going out and looking for listing agent. But a couple times a year, we'll just go out and hit a bunch of doors and brand for a good cause. We had so many. So we make sure that the food goes to the food bank that services that neighborhood, and so we brought just a truckload of canned food to 2 different food banks. It was a lot of fun. So in our course that we teach, it's going to be in October. We were originally slated for August, and we pushed it back to October to make sure that we could be consistent on all those dates. But this is what we've talked about. We talked about why we farm, why we do what we do, what some of the benefits are from farming. We talked about choosing a farm from a business mindset, not a feel-good mindset. I don't want to choose a farm because I love the neighborhood. I want to choose a farm because it makes business sense. We look at some of the numbers that are important there. We talked about how the consumer's mind works and how to get our product and position it first in mind. So we spent 2 weeks on that because it's pretty important. We talked about hyperlocal marketing, what that looks like. and how to go about that. Some farm marketing techniques. So we spent an entire call just going through some tried and true things that we've done, so that other farmers have done in their farms to reach out to people. Prospecting in your farm. This is where we go over. I know a lot of people like to pick up the phone. The conversation changes when you're farming, and so we spend an entire week just going over those scripts, talking about how those conversations work, and we bring in a special guest for that call. The farm route. We talk about the activities that we do on a monthly basis to make sure that we're connecting with our farm regularly outside of direct mail and that personal touch. We talk about creating brand ambassadors. This includes that local market, the local networking meeting that we do every month. We talk about being a local market expert and the things that we need to know, the things that we need to learn on an ongoing basis to make sure that we are a local expert, if we're going to call ourselves one. We talk about niche farming. One of the cool things about farming is you have a regular piece going out to everyone, and so you can identify some niche groups, some subsets of your market there, and be able to have some conversations to market to them. And it doesn't cost you anything else because that marketing piece is already going out. And so we identify some strategies and what to look for there, and then connecting online, some of the different things that we do to connect with people online on social media, on the web, things like that. So I'd love to open it up for questions. I know a couple people have raised some questions now. I'll get to those. An example of niche marketing would be Spanish language is a great niche market. Another great example is one that we've seen, we saw a few years back, and it was the bulk of our business. It was a niche market, was the bulk of our business when we were marketing to people that needed to short sell their homes. And so we're marketing to everybody in the farm, but then we've got a little item in there that's just for people that are looking to short sell their homes. Another couple examples, niche farming to people who have been through a short sale or bankruptcy or foreclosure and getting them back on the road to home ownership. We'll market to them, marketing to people that have interest in sports, things like that. So we can, weddings, so people that are getting married and take the next step. So we market to that niche. So there's some examples there. How many homes in total do you all farm? So right now, we're right around, I think, 50 to 56,000 homes. But we didn't start there. I know it's just so overwhelming. It's overwhelming for us to think about it sometimes. But we started out with 1,800 homes in a farm, and then grew with revenue and grew with opportunity. One of our farms is a rectangular-shaped zip code, and we only mail to a square in that rectangle. And we've added some routes with revenue, and we'll add some routes in the future. But we talked about that in the course and how to choose that farm. And some of it, sometimes you're choosing the future farm, but you're also choosing the present farm. It's something that you can start with that's going to be profitable, and that we can grow with revenue to hit the whole thing. So that's how many homes we've been farming. What is your flexible commission program? Flexible commission program, there's a lot of different ways to phrase that. We've come up with some different options. If we're listing their home and they're buying at the same time, we might be a little bit flexible on that commission. Reduce services, those kinds of things. We found that having the words in the ad, we get a lot fewer of the commission flexibility questions because we have a sheet that is already printed up that says this is what 5% looks like. It's because you're buying with us at the same time. So then they go, well, what do you want to do can you do 5% instead of 6%? Well, are you buying right now? No, I'm not. Well, we can't. And we find that people just move on. So we're just having the words in there. We don't do very many flexible commissions, to be honest with you. How many homes in a farm should we market to without neglecting homes in the farm? In other words, how many are too many? Stan has a great question. You want a farm, not ranch. So you want to make sure it's manageable, and what's manageable to you might be different than what's manageable to someone else. And so we find those routes that make sense from a financial standpoint and mail to those. It doesn't mean we're excluding the other homes, because we might still have our website that's focused on the whole neighborhood. Just because they're not getting our marketing piece doesn't mean they're not exposed to our marketing in other areas and seeing your name all over the place and stuff like that. And so we can market to that entire zip code or that entire neighborhood without hitting every single home in there. But how many are too many? It's just if you can't manage it, you want to make sure that you can do that budget of a year of marketing pieces. Will you help us get set up with the newsletter in the course? We actually we give you some methods for getting that taken care of in your community. We don't have templates because each area is different, and my templates generally won't help you. We found that if we send the same piece if we sent the same piece here as we do in a more higher price point, just wouldn't have the same effect. So we want to make sure that whatever you're sending fits with you. But we do have some PDFs that we share that you can share with some local graphic designers or high school students. We go into a lot of different options that you have for that. I've just started farming, have great conversations. It's taking forever to hit the whole 500 farm area. Any suggestions? Yes, direct mail. Keep the direct mail means that when you're doing that door knocking, you're continuing the conversation. The conversation's already started, and so you can hit that whole 500 home area with direct mail and supplement that with some door knocking and other things. Great question, Myrna. Lisa, how many times a month do you market? We send out one direct mail piece a month. That doesn't mean that those people aren't getting more pieces because when we do just sold, just listed, those kinds of things, we only do it in the areas that we're farming. So they might get some extra pieces from us, but they're also getting hit at the grocery store. They're getting hit at the high school. They're getting hit, at a special event. They're seeing our trucks all over the place. They see our signs, and so all those are marketing. All those are hits. All those are touches, and so you don't want to limit yourself to thinking of the tangible piece as being the only touch. You can do more than that. All right, Lisa? So that's how many times we do the direct mail pieces, one a month. And the studies show that it's probably not enough. People tend to forget a brand. I think it was 17 days that you start to forget that brand. So we want to make sure that you are present in other places. Any suggestions for farming on a tight budget? Yes, farm a smaller area. Farm a smaller area. Make sure that when you're choosing that farm, that it's something that you can effectively farm for up to a year without any closings. Why? Because you're not guaranteed any closings in that first year. Let's say you get a buyer on day one and you take them out and they get a new build with a 12-month build time. No GCI in that for another year, Most of the seller leads that you get are going to be nurturers. They're people that are not thinking about buying and selling right now, but you're building that relationship with them. So farming is a delayed gratification. 9 months, 6 to 9 months in many cases before you see those checks, because you do have to close stuff, right? And so we want to make sure that we're budgeting for a whole year. So just tie your budget to you get your budget and you tie your farm area to that. Can you give us some idea of how much to spend on a farm and the ROI? We go through that in the second session, Stan. It really depends. I mean, your price point is going to determine that. Your turnover rate is going to determine that. How often you're farming. Dominant agents, all those things. There's a lot of things that we have to consider when we're going to be talking about what is the ROI, what should we spend, and how big should we make that farm. So there's no one answer for anyone. I can tell you that in our farms, it is not a consistent number. It changes. Our farm here, average sale price about right now $265. The adjacent farm, average sale price of about $200. So it changes, and you can't use the same equation with the same results in both, because those numbers are different. All right, I want to thank everybody for being on the call with us. Hopefully that was of benefit to you. Again, my name is Scott Kooiman. I teach the Farming Will Make You Millions course with my colleague Kenny Klaus, and we'd love to have you here. Myrna asked, are there any skipped weeks? Yeah, we post the schedule there. I think we skip at like Christmas time or something like that. One more question: if you're newer to the biz and you don't have the Kenny Klaus team kind of money to spend on marketing, do you recommend doing something else? Yeah, you take the amount of money that you want to invest in growing your business, and define your farm area based on that. Farming doesn't have to be expensive, and there's people that farm. I know out in Florida, people farm a condo complex and grow from there. They start with a condo complex, and so there's lots of opportunities. It doesn't need to be tremendously expensive. Postcards are pretty inexpensive, but under 30 cents a piece to do the direct mail. And the direct mail is not the only way to farm. We found it to be the most effective, but there's other ways to farm. We talked about doing, in our course, we talked about doing Facebook ads, different things like that you could target hyper-locally. And so there's opportunities there that fit on a slightly smaller budget. It's still, there's going to need to be a budget because we are in business, and so we're going to have to invest in that business somehow. So thank you all for joining me, and hope to see you in Farming Will Make You Millions.